We're here to protect you and the ones that you love. It's a good feeling to know that our efforts aren't going unnoticed.
It actually brought tears to my eyes to know that we have this support.
You're welcome. I must just say, you're welcome. It's stressful, but we're not going anywhere.
Welcome to another edition of the Bucknell University Head Coaches Panel presented by our friends at Geisinger. We want to really thank the folks at Geisinger for all they do for our community and folks each and every day putting themselves on the front lines. And they've enabled us to put together a session like this where we can talk to some of our head coaches and find out just how they and their student athletes are handling these tough times and uncertain days. And it enables us to hear from each of the coaches on our staff. Today, I'm joined by four of our coaches, starting with head coach Steve Kish, coach of our women's rowing program. Coach Kish is finishing his 24th season with the Bison. He's also a Bucknell grad. The head coach of our wrestling program, Dan Wirnsberger. Coach Wirnsberger is finishing, believe it or not, his 15th season already with Bucknell. Head coach Bruce Myers of our men's tennis program. Bruce just finished his 4th season. And I say finished when really none of these coaches got to finish out this year with what's happened, but just a term I'm using here. And then finally, Joey Lai, who was completing her 3rd season as a head coach of our softball program. So I want to thank each of you for taking the time out today to join us and just give us a little bit of insight about how each of you are doing and how your student athletes are doing. And the first question I'll pose to each of you will certainly result in different answers depending on your program. But can you tell us where you were when the news broke that the semester was going to be coming to an end, and then eventually all athletics would cease and our student athletes would have their spring really pulled out from under them, and then how you took that information and informed your team? And Coach Kish, we'll start with you. I know it was over spring break time. Can you let us know how you guys were able to handle that?
Yeah, we spend the week of spring break at a state park down in Georgia. And so we train there all week and then come back at the end of spring break. So that was on, the first piece of news was Tuesday. The second piece of news, the final news, is on Thursday. So it was sort of a tenuous week. We were already having meetings starting Tuesday. Then when the news came down on Thursday morning, we were actually on the water, practicing, got the news through the email, and afterwards got the group together and sat down and talked about the final news. We were lucky in the sense that we couldn't get back on Friday. Our flights were on Saturday and there was no way to get moving Friday. So we had another day down there on Friday to spend together and to unpack sort of obviously some really tough feelings, but also unpack some ideas for the future. So we had some good time together, but it was also probably the worst 24 hours I think the team has really ever experienced.
And Coach Wirnsberger, for you, a little different. You were back leave in town, but you were preparing some of your wrestlers to compete on the biggest stage that there is in the NCAA championship.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, it's been so long. I've been quarantined for so long, I can barely remember, that week. But, we had 2 of our national qualifiers were obviously on site training. We were just finishing a 3-day training cycle for those guys in preparation for the NCAA tournament the following week. And we had a handful of guys here helping those 2 athletes prepare themselves for NCAAs. And the rest of our team was obviously on spring break. So the 3-day training cycle was over. We sent those guys home. I actually gave my national qualifiers a couple days off just for rest and recovery and go enjoy a little bit of time with family before we did the final tracing phase in preparation for NCAAs. And that's when we got the news and just gathered everyone together via Zoom on a Friday afternoon and broke the news to the entire team. And it was just a little bit challenging to process at the time for the coaching staff, as well as for the athletes, in particular, those guys that had qualified for the NCAA tournament. And then I really think about how challenging it was for like our senior, Drew Phipps, who was going to NCAAs, and it was his last chance to finish out and get on the podium as an All-American there, or a national champ there. He had just beat the number 4 guy in the country the week before. And on top of that, he had 99 career wins. So it was really tough for him to process that, and for the rest of the guys. But yeah, that's where we learned of it. So that was definitely a hard week, but we came up with a plan from there as far as how we were going to move forward.
And Bruce, I know your team was over spring break, so you guys were just getting your season going. Where were you when you heard the news?
We were actually traveling north to University of California, Riverside for a match. On the way there, the guys had learned that the Ivy League had canceled their seasons, so we kind of figured it might be inevitable at that point. And then we were in a rain delay halfway through our match when the guys got the email and learned that our season this could be our last match. So,
Wow. And Joey, so for you, a completely unique situation than any of our coaches at Bucknell were in, as you were training yourself as part of the Canadian national team for what was hopefully the Olympics. Where were you personally when you found out? And then how did your assistant coaches handle it with the team where they were?
So the team was in the DC area. They had just finished a couple of midweek games over spring break and were about to head down to Elon University for the weekend tournament. And so, I was up in Halifax just, following along, staying in touch, and Halifax, Nova Scotia. And that morning that we found out that the rest of the season was going to be canceled, I was actually in a training session. So kind of found out between things. And at that point, it was just that, would be able to finish out spring break, and then the rest of the season was going to be canceled. And so my assistant coaches let the team know when they got on the bus to heading towards, they're actually going to DC to walk around for a little bit before heading all the way down to Elon. So they got on the bus to go into DC, and found out that this weekend was their last games. And for me, I'm finding this information out and contacting my wife and letting her know that, hey, guess what, honey, tomorrow I'm coming home and we're driving down to Elon to support the team in their last weekend. And a couple hours later, then the decision had been made that they were not allowed to play that weekend. And so the team kind of spent an hour or so walking around DC and just feeling the devastation of losing the opportunity to know that it was their last games together and kind of end the season that way, and digesting that, and particularly challenging for the seniors. And glad they were able to have that time together and, be off the bus and spending the time kind of walking around and making, although very sad at that time, memories, but making memories with each other. And so I got back on the bus and headed back to campus. And I got back to campus the next afternoon and was thankfully able to say hello and goodbye from a distance. Obviously, I'd been traveling, so didn't want to take any risk there. But it was nice to see their faces and say hi before they left campus.
So for all of you, 3 of the 4 of you are coaching your championship session during the spring, and Wirnsberger, you had 2 athletes that were still competing, and some of you have already mentioned the seniors. This is terrible news for any student athlete to have to go through, but for the seniors in particular. Not only do they lose their last season of competition or opportunity, but they lose the traditions that happen on campus as a Bucknell senior, and who knows about commencement, what's going to happen there. So what were the conversations like, the tough ones that you had to have with your seniors? And were you able to do anything in terms of a celebration for them, whether it was a banquet? I've heard of some coaches that have done virtual banquets, or some kind of gathering or get together with your seniors from a remote distance. How have you handled that? Coach Wirnsberger, we'll start with you. You mentioned Drew, but you've got some other seniors as well.
Sure. Yeah, I touched on just the Drew Phipps part of it, but our other seniors that were involved in a critical piece to our season, and even training Drew in the off season in preparation for our out of season competition, NCAA tournament. And people look at it and say, "Man, how unfair!" It was. Oh, it's so unfair. And I try to look at it a little differently. That just things happen in life, and there's events that are going to take place and happen. We're just grateful and fortunate we can even compete in Division I athletics. And I don't look at it as so much as unfair. I look at it as unfortunate what happened, and just trying to communicate that same message to our seniors, in particular Drew Phipps. It's heartbreaking, from a coaching perspective, where you're with a guy for 4 years in the trenches with him, and he's got 99 career wins, trying to hit, and 100 has been his goal all year long. He spoke about it and talked about it, and it was a big focus and goal for him, as well as getting on the podium at the NCAA tournament. He doesn't have any more chances. It's just unfortunate rather than unfair, and we're just trying to get their perspective to I guess see it in a different light, right? I mean, we're grateful where we're at and what we're able to do at Bucknell University at an elite school like this, and to compete and have our health and all that. It's just unfortunate as far as the timing of the whole situation and what's transpired. So you just try to look at it and try to be optimistic about things, and look at what Drew's learned and our other seniors have learned from Bucknell University and the sport of wrestling, and what they're going to be able to do in the next phase of their life, and just trying to look forward to that.
It's a really positive message to leave them with. Coach Kish, I know you've got a number of seniors as well, and when you're a spring sport and you're just getting up and going, you have high hopes and aspirations for how the team's going to do competitively. How have your seniors coped with all of this?
Yeah, it's a tough road just because we were 1 week away from opening up the season. And, rowing has very few competitions over the course of the year, so each one is really precious. So the seniors definitely felt the loss. That being said, when you talk about experiences, dovetailing a little bit on what Coach Wirnsberger is saying, talk about experiences. This is one that you'll never forget. And we talked with some alumni from 10 and 15 and 20 years out, and they've got some rowing memories, but a lot of the memories about other things. Well, this is going to be one of those other things. And they're going to remember how they managed it, how they moved on from it, and then eventually, with some wisdom and distance, how they grew from it. So it's hard to say that in the moment as things are unfolding, but over the past 7 weeks, I think we're starting to get a little more appreciation for this is one of those experiences that we're all going to share together, and over time, individually, as a group, then hopefully as a larger whole, really grow from and come out stronger. But for our 9 seniors, we're going to do our virtual end of year celebration towards the end of May. We wanted to give some time because right now it's all been about academics and getting 2 exams, and now currently getting through exams. So we'll do something later in May, but we've been doing our usual gatherings on Zoom, and we're having a parent tailgate actually tomorrow. So we're doing our best to keep things positive and keep things connected.
And Joey, you mentioned that your seniors were able to spend that last day together in DC, and that's precious time. But how are they doing right now? Have you had much communication with that group?
Yeah, it's been pretty tough for them to digest everything that's been going on, not only with softball, but with their day-to-day and the world in general. And they've had some time to process it now, but still are struggling a little bit with just the drastic end to it all, the abrupt end to it all. The team is so close, and I'm grateful for that. They had each other. One of the juniors put together a video immediately, and the players all got together before leaving campus and watched that video together and kind of celebrated one another. We'll be doing a virtual tailgate with the whole team and parents, and take some time to acknowledge and celebrate the team and the seniors, and just be able to spend a little bit of time together. A few of the seniors have jobs lined up, so they're working towards that. They have things to distract themselves and for moving forward. They're still extremely proud of everything they have accomplished at Bucknell on the field and in the classroom, and so they have a lot to be grateful for, and they're trying to look at it in that way. It's pretty challenging just because of getting. I mean, we were fortunate that the team got 22 games in. little under half of what a regular season would be, but 0 Patriot League games, and they were chomping at the bit to get back into that schedule. But just really grateful that the team's extremely close and has leaned on each other and done a really good job. We set up a virtual locker room for them. They can pop in there any day of the week and connect with each other. And they have their own Snapchat group and group me. And so they're in constant communication with each other and just leaning on each other as much as they can through this time.
And Bruce, for you, it's a little bit of a different discussion because there were no seniors on your roster. So how are your current student athletes holding together?
I guess I was lucky because I feel for everybody, and you see the seniors and the stories. We have no seniors and 1 junior, so we were a really, really young team. So I think they're excited to get back at it, hopefully in the fall, and get back to campus. And all the communication has been positive, and disappointing that they didn't get to experience a Patriot League match, but that's going to hopefully happen next year. So it's, I feel for all the other coaches, and I couldn't imagine having seniors and not get to go through the graduation and all the experiences of their final season. So,
and this really leads into the next question too, and it's a topic I really want to talk about, and it's communication as a whole. When everybody is remote, learning remotely, trying to train remotely, and we don't have that day-to-day face-to-face, what methods of communication have you all been using with your team, and then also with your alumni, parents, and constituents? If there's one thing I've seen that has been somewhat of a positive from this whole devastating pandemic, is that people are reaching out to folks they haven't talked to in years, and it's enabled folks to reconnect. And I've heard stories of alumni from each of your respective sports reconnecting with teammates that they haven't spoken to in so long, and really enjoying that. So what methods have you all used, or are you using, to help facilitate that? And Coach Wirnsberger, we'll start with you.
Sure. The connectivity has been really great. It's been better than it ever has been, for sure. As far as with our team, it's once a week as far as a team meeting, where we get all 33 guys and get those dudes together along with the coaching staff and spend about 45 minutes to an hour just seeing how things are going and checking in with each other. And then we, fortunately for me, it's myself and I have 2 full-time assistants, and then we break our guys down into small groups. So we connect with them. In the past, we've done just Friday afternoons, our team time, and then Monday evenings or Tuesday evenings is our small group time, where I take a group of 8 guys, and then the other assistants take the other guys in small group, 8 to 10 guys, and just in a smaller setting, just each guy speaking, actually getting to know these guys on a little bit more of a personal level, just by connecting as often as we're connecting. I mean, when we're on that treadmill of life, right, we're doing one thing and then to another thing, and with recruiting and all the administrative duties as a coach, and these guys are going from their classes to studying to exams to workouts, whether it's lifting or training or whatever it is, and you don't have a lot of time to spend together and really connect. And this, the one blessing that's come out of this is just the connectivity piece of it, and just getting to know these guys a little bit, getting closer to them on a personal level. So we've been doing that a couple times a week as far as engaging with these dudes and just checking in with them. And then the parents, we just gave program update to all the parents. We did a separate one for those guys a couple weeks ago on a Friday night for about an hour. And then even our incoming freshmen, their parents, we did a separate one for them just to give them a program update, just ease their mind if they had any questions or concerns as far as what's going on. And, with the situation the way it is, it's day to day, week to week, as far as information that's changing about, how does it look for summer? How does it look for next fall? When can we get back into our offices? When can we get back on campus, et cetera? There's so much that goes into it. It changes day to day, basically. So, it's been good. I mean, we're trying to just look at it from that standpoint as far as moving forward and just connecting on a different level, which has been tremendous.
And Joey, I know with your program, the alums have certainly had the opportunities to get together. In fact, I spoke with one alum who says they have now their own Zoom call that they've started doing every week. And it started out as a weekly happy hour, but then she quickly told me it's a weekly 2.5-hour happy hour. So how are those things going for your program?
Yeah, they're going pretty well. I was fortunate enough to jump on one of those calls that has developed, and that came from, we had an alumni happy hour and just sent out a Google form with a Zoom link and hoped for the best. And we had a few alums jump on there and just had each person talk about where they're at, how they're dealing with it, how they're staying positive through this time, and that there was an additional weekly Zoom with a group of former teammates. I asked if I could jump on there and just see what was going on and meet everyone, and that was awesome. Just the memories that came out, the fun that they were having, and after about an hour or so, I let them have their own time again. But it was so fun to just see them connecting and how bonded they were over their experience at Bucknell and the memories they had to share. So that was a lot of fun. We've done a Zoom chat with the parents as well, including the incoming parents. And again, each parent or pair of parents, if they were on together, took a few minutes to talk about where they were at, how their daughter was doing, how they were doing, introduce themselves to the incoming parents, and talk about just their situation individually and ask some questions of me. And so I think that was a good session. And I didn't have a lot of answers for them, unfortunately. They're tough to have solid answers during this time, but just to see everyone's face and have that connection, I think made a big difference. We've done some team stuff, some class meetings, some individual FaceTimes, and we've had our incoming class chat with the coaches as well, and have also set up some time for them to chat amongst themselves without the coaches there, so that they can start getting to know each other, because they missed out on their official visit for the 7 of them to come together and get to know each other a little bit better and see what Bucknell softball was about in more detail. So we've just been trying to provide as many opportunities as possible for the team and incoming players and parents and alumni to connect in different ways, and we'll continue to do that as we move into the summer.
And Bruce, I know with you, you've taken a little bit of different approach in addition to maybe a Zoom call. I know you've personally been reaching out to all of your alums by writing them all letters, which takes a lot of time and effort to do that. What other methods of communication have you been able to use for your program and maybe your constituents?
With all this newfound time we're not used to having in March and April, you're having an older alumni base, especially I think this upcoming season's the 100th anniversary of men's tennis at Bucknell. So writing them letters, they've always responded really well. They love receiving letters from my guys and everything. The issue I've had with staying in touch with my team is we've got, I think, a 9-hour gap in time zones. So when you have Sweden and China and Puerto Rico, like it's all individual, because I can't get, with classes during the day, I can't get everybody together in a group, without the Chinese kid being on at 3 a.m. or things like that. So it's all been individual, which is fine, because, we want them to focus on the academics through the next week or so. And then we'll kind of look towards May to get more group sessions going. So.
And finally, Coach Kish, I know one of your fortes has always been the out-of-the-box thinking in terms of how you communicate. What have you been doing with your program, with your kids, and also with your alumni?
Well, it's great to hear what everyone's doing. And, with all the different doors that are closing right now, it's also interesting to see the doors that are opening up. So there's been a lot of sharing going on amongst coaches, whether it's Bucknell coaches or even the Patriot League coaches have gotten together. The head coaches in rowing have had Zoom calls to talk about how we're all working with our programs. The most unique thing that came up recently was our alumni base has volunteered to get on to Zoom calls with our students about their career paths and to share their career paths since Bucknell, where they've gone and where they are. And so our students are able to pick from literally 35 alumni are going to be meeting with us in May and June, basically every weekday. And so a student can pick who they want to get onto a Zoom call with. It'll be a group call, and they can talk about, again, potential career paths and choices they made and advice they might give. And so it's a great chance for us to connect our alumni with our current students. Otherwise, just seeing the students in their own homes, doing some fun stuff, whether it's sharing, meeting your pets or sharing childhood photos over GroupMe, doing trivia night. It's been some time to do things that you don't get to do, like Coach Wirnsberger says, during the treadmill of the year. So again, these doors that are opening, who knows? They could really build some new bridges that we haven't had in the past.
So obviously, in addition to the challenge of trying to study and learn remotely, each of your student athletes has the additional challenge of trying to train and stay in shape remotely. We're really thankful we have the bridge system here at Bucknell, which enables our strength and conditioning coaches to stay, and you guys to stay attached to the athletes in that manner. But what out of the box types methods have you heard, if any, that your student athletes are doing to try and train? Everybody's situation at home is different. Some might have more than others to be able to train with. And I know I've seen some videos of the wrestling coaches, what they've been doing in terms of training outside and those types of techniques. Dan, maybe you can talk about what your program is doing as far as training.
Sure. We're just, when we're in discussion with our guys, we're just trying to challenge them to just out of the box, whatever they can come up with. I just know in my house here, and I got 3 boys, and we're not just going to be sitting around, right? We're going to, they're doing their virtual, studies through their school. And then other than that, man, we try to get outside and do what we can just in our closeness of our family, right? And so we're doing a lot of garage workouts, a lot of driveway workouts, a lot of up the hill, up the road. I have some wood that we've cut up that we split out back. So we're carrying those around and doing weight specific exercise with those. We're, holding on and hugging a tree as long as we can without falling down, just whatever we can come up with. So we try to share as many of those as possible. And then just challenge our guys and see what they're able to come up with on their own. And when you challenge some guys, it's amazing. Then in our group message, how many guys are daily posting different type of workouts that they're doing at home. And it's amazing how many of our young men, depending if they have siblings or if they don't have siblings, brothers or sisters, that they're grabbing their dad and getting their dad back on the mat where, it's been probably 15, 20 years since he's done it. So it's been cool to see that as far as that connectivity and that bonding that's going on, with these guys that are at home with their families and how they're just trying to find ways to catch workouts. And we have a few engineers on our team. So some of our guys have posted pictures and videos of them building a squat rack, building a bench press rack as well. Just finding unique ways to continue to work with whatever equipment that is available to them, whether it's in their basement, in their garage, or in their driveway.
And Coach Kish, with the rowing program, obviously the gist of the training will be dry land training because there's no opportunity really for your student athletes to get together on the water anywhere. What kinds of training regimes right now, or regiments right now, are your kids going through?
Sure. Well, honestly, it was the blow was so big, and right at the beginning of the season, that for the past 7 weeks we really haven't been focusing on training at all. Right now we're about to gear up as soon as exams are over to get that process started for next year. So reality is we were thinking mostly just about self-care, mental health, obviously academics, and staying connected. But I hate to be, dour, but it was a grieving process that lasted for every weekend of racing that we felt that we were missing. Going up through this past weekend would have been our senior day and our team banquet. And we're currently 13 days out from what would have been the Patriot League Championship, which was obviously the peak of the year. So it really hasn't been about training. It's been more about getting through this period of time and then turning the page to next year's campaign.
That's a really good point. And, as a spring sport, a lot of our spring sports do have that added time that they can then devote later on to training and getting that back in line. Joey, how has softball gone? Have you guys taken the approach that Coach Kish is taking, where you're backed off the training a little bit and letting them adjust to everything that's happening?
For a little while, maybe a week and a half or 2 weeks from when everything went down, we kind of backed off and just let the ladies get used to being back at home and kind of getting into the routine. And after that, we felt we wanted to give them a little bit of focus and some maybe 3 workouts a week and twice, pick up a softball or do some dry reps or hit off the tee, depending on what each player had. And the theory behind what we asked of them was we didn't want to overwhelm them, but we wanted to give them some form of structure. A lot of those young ladies thrive when they're busy and thrive when they have, each day. And so we wanted to kind of to that need a little bit, and at the same time allow them, the majority of their time to get their schoolwork done and spend time with their families and just adjust to their new current lifestyle. But I think it was cool to see the creativity they had. Some people were throwing lacrosse balls off of their house wall, and just working glove work, working footwork, and people were having family members roll them a ball and they could, field it and throw it into a bow net that was set up on their front lawn. And so it was fun to see how creative they got and the different things that they wanted to work on. We weren't strict on, what drills they had to do or what exactly they during that softball time. And it was just, what do you want to do? What do you want to spend time doing? What's going to kind of make you happy and feel like you're making a little bit of progress? Left a lot of that choice up to them, but wanted to provide them a little bit of structure.
And Bruce, as mentioned, your guys, while not a large roster, are spread out all over the world. So I'm assuming there are different situations where they each live in terms of whether or not tennis courts are even open.
Yeah, in some of the countries like Sweden, the news has been pretty big because they didn't really do a quarantine time there. So they were open with social distancing practices. So the courts have been open. In Florida, a lot of the courts have been open for most of the time. When it's funny, once the season was canceled, a couple of my American kids decided they would like to quarantine with my Puerto Rican player. So they've been in Puerto Rico for the last 6 weeks or 8 weeks with enjoying the weather there and staying in the pools, but they haven't been hitting. So it's kind of been on their own. The big thing we've been kind of doing is each match day, we've had a virtual, I've said, hey, we just beat Lehigh 4-3, even though we didn't play them. And it kind of culminated. Sunday was the Patriot League final day, and we beat Navy virtually 4-3. So they can kind of go over I beat the number one, and they give me the match breakdown. So we've done a lot of virtual matches, but we've kind of left them alone to train on their own as they felt. But they've all, I think, hit over the past couple of weeks, which is nice. So.
Okay. Well, my last question, and again, before I get to it, I thank each of you guys for taking the time today to join us. But this last topic is one that certainly every program has a different approach to, but we've mentioned earlier, several of you have the incoming freshmen for next year, the incoming classes, and how important retention is going to be to make sure those individuals feel comfortable and safe in coming to Bucknell and actually do show up. But on top of that, the whole world of recruiting has changed for so many programs drastically with what's happened. How has it affected your program, and what steps do you now have to take that you maybe did not have to take in the past? And Dan, we'll start with you in wrestling.
Sure. It's been okay. Obviously we're limited with, our off-campus or on-campus visitations. And so we're doing a lot of phone calls, a lot of Zoom meetings with recruits. It's gone pretty well for us. I would have to say that. And there's just some guys that we've been able to move forward with in a really, really positive way that we might not have been able to before, just based on their state tournaments and some of these springtime national tournaments and their high school state tournaments were canceled. And that keeps them slightly under the radar, so to speak, which is, it allows us to get in there and just develop a relationship and just kind of keep moving forward with some of these guys. And I think at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. We were able to get during this time just a verbal commitment from a young man, and just based on the relationship and his comfortability, with the coaching staff, right? And just us being able to connect with him and Zoom with him, with his mom and dad, and them feeling so comfortable with us. He just felt like this was this was the right spot for him. So we've been able to manage and work through it. Obviously, we're looking forward to when it opens up again, when we can get out there and get on the road and go make some home visits and get these young men onto campus. But other than that, I mean, we're managing it just like any other program would be managing it, and it's requiring a lot of work on our end as far as making sure we're connecting with these guys multiple times a week.
And Joey, in the world of softball, I'm assuming a lot of the showcases and summer recruiting weekends have been either canceled or postponed. So I'd imagine your relationships that you guys have with club coaches and high school coaches, and the trust you have with them, and also how much videotape you're now looking at, really takes an added incentive for you in terms of recruiting.
Yeah, we're pretty fortunate and are fairly finished with our 2021 class. And so I'm not as stressed as I could be with regard to the drastic changes that are coming our way with recruiting. Some rules changed a couple years ago now that we can't even speak with anyone younger than a junior. So, you know, we're not missing out on having official visits or unofficial visits with any players that we would want to be having at this point. And so, you know, September 1st is the date that communication can open up. And so this summer would have been the super in order to identify and start understanding the situations of a lot of 2022 recruits. So it's possible by this summer we'll be pretty behind with regard to that, and really, you know, hopefully be able to grind through the fall recruiting season and play catch up with regard to that. But right now, like you said, it's watching a lot of video and trying to get a bit of a sense through conversations and videos with regard to what these club teams have to offer. We can't even really talk in depth about 2022 recruits with the coaching staff of their respective teams. So we're not missing out on a whole lot now. I think they're trying to delay as long as possible the cancellation of the tournaments this summer, but I imagine those announcements will start coming out, and then we'll just have to put a plan together for fall recruiting.
And the obvious thing for all of you is that Bucknell is not the only institution in this situation. So no one has an advantage here. Everybody's working through the same issues. Bruce, with your program and a smaller roster, you may not have to recruit as many individuals, but the ones that you do recruit are really key to the success of the program and how the team bonds and gels. And with international, potential international students involved in that as well, how has this affected your recruiting plan moving forward?
Yeah, there's a lot more uncertainty based on even as something as simple as the visas, the F1 visas. Like, I'm not sure if all of my internationals can return. So that kind of, with the roster management and things like that, there's a little bit of uncertainty. You know, certain areas of the world were hit harder by this, so you don't know if the Spanish and the Italians are looking to travel or come overseas, you know. And I think in speaking to some of my internationals, you know, the thought is that in America, everybody has the virus, so maybe we should stay away for a year. So you don't know if some of the student athletes might be looking to take a gap year. So there's a lot more uncertainty with the international landscape than there has been in the past. So it's forcing, I think, a lot of coaches to look more domestic, which is unusual at the mid-major level for men's tennis at least. So it's good and bad because, you know, as things have been canceled, we, you know, there's as you know, Joey said, I guess softball recruits 2 years out. We recruit, you know, I'm finishing my 2020 class now, so we recruit kind of a lot more recent. So it's the uncertainty, but everybody's facing it. So I guess we'll see.
And finally, Coach Kish, the opposite of Coach Myers, you've got a larger roster. So how are you approaching the recruiting at this point?
In simple terms, it's going better than ever. What we have available right now is time. Typically at this time of year, we'd be so busy with the season, completely heads down in the trenches. The high school juniors would be doing the same thing. They'd be in their season, heads down in the trenches. And so what we have is wide open doors with time to be able to connect on Zoom, on the phone, show them campus virtually as best we can. So we're having more success at this time of year than usual. Some of our earliest commits in the history of the program so far this spring, so it's moving along pretty well.
Well, great. Again, I appreciate everybody taking some time out today. You guys gave me some great insight, and hopefully those watching at home some great insight as to what you're experiencing and how you're handling it and what our student athletes are experiencing. I want to thank our friends at Geisinger for this, and to all those watching at home, please stay safe. You as coaches, keep your family safe, and everybody stay Bison strong and have a great day.
Thanks, Todd.
Thank you.